The 2010s have ended and we've already got a few things to look forward to in the new decade. But before we dive into the 2020 remake of Enter the Fat Dragon, it is time to take a look back at the gold standards of the last decade. I'm the Martial Arts Film Freak, and these are my picks for the best martial arts films of the 2010s. A lot can come out over an entire decade, so let's break it into categories. And yes, these categories are going to seem pretty random. Starting with some hidden gems. These are the films that didn't feature any well-known names. The movies that you see on the rack at Walmart and buy it not knowing if it's a waste of time or an incredible discovery. Never Back Down 3, No Surrender salvaged Michael Jai White goodness from a dead-on-arrival franchise. Night Shooters put Jean Paul Lee on display for the world to see with a fun and enjoyable concept. And Unlucky Stars brought the choreography styles of Dennis Ruel and the stunt people off of YouTube and into a feature-length film. But none have cemented into my brain more than Fabian Garcia's Die Fighting. People are going to be turned off by Die Fighting because it looks cheaply made, but that's truly no excuse to ignore this movie. Meant to be a found-footage style martial arts movie, Die Fighting trades into set design and the quality in acting in exchange for awe-inspiring fight choreography. Garcia made this movie alongside his stunt team in an effort to show off their skills, and he succeeded on nearly every level. Each performer offers something unique to every fight scene, and as we'll see a lot on this list, no one knows how to capture action like stunt performers. Next up, we're diving into a country who sadly has started lacking in their action films as of late. Thailand gave us modern classics throughout the double zeros, but sadly the 2010s saw a major decline in martial arts epics. Unfortunately, this may be due to the untimely 2014 passing of the Thai director and martial artist Panaritikrai. But before he was gone, he directed 2010's BKO Bangkok Knockout. The utter insanity of BKO was the result of Panaritikrai deciding to fill the cast of an entire film with his own stunt team. This decision led to intense and painful full-contact fight scenes. Every character entertainingly utilizes a different style of martial arts, like a live-action game of Tekken. And Ritikrai even plays the role of an unbeatable final boss. The action is wholly unique with one-on-one technical battles, all-out brawls, and everything in between. To fill the number 8 spot, we're looking into the surprise debuts. This is for stars like Bruce Caan in Netflix's Revenger, Philip Ng in Once Upon a Time in Shanghai, or even Gina Carano stepping out of the cage and onto the big screen in Steven Soderbergh's Haywire. Countries can even take the spot, as with the Philippines producing their first martial arts films in Bybust and Maria. Cambodia released their first martial arts film simultaneously debuting Jean Paul Lee right on Netflix with the fantastic film Jailbreak. But the best debut goes to a pairing of director and star with Man of Tai Chi. Introducing Tiger Chen and directed by Keanu Reeves, who also plays the villain, Man of Tai Chi was Reeves' attempt to show off the skills of the very man who trained him for The Matrix. The outcome was one of the most entertaining martial arts films of the decade, instantly placing Tiger Chen among the likes of Scott Adkins and Donnie Yen. Every fight scene is different from the last as Tiger Chen finds himself going head to head with people of different backgrounds, and yes, he does fight Keanu himself. A pre-John Wick Keanu, but Keanu nonetheless. For the number 7 spot, we're visiting a familiar and mostly reliable South Korea. The land of the action crime thrillers started off the decade with the gory brilliance that is Man from Nowhere, and since then has refused to let up with films like A Company Man and No Tears for the Dead following shortly after. Kundo and Fist of Legend stepped out of the crime box and gave the world a period martial arts epic and a mixed martial arts drama to rival Warrior, while The Divine Move made a board game player the scariest person in the world. But the best of South Korea has to go to The Villainess. How can you not give it to the movie that is so awesome that John Wick himself played copycat to it? The Villainess features some of the most creative fight scenes I have ever seen from a Korean film. The action, though, is few and far between. Instead, the film decides to tell the story of an assassin and her devotion to her daughter. The little action we do see is some of the most batshit crazy single-take style filmmaking I have ever seen, providing action set pieces that make Hollywood blockbusters look like child's play. Rounding out the top half of the list, we're visiting Japan, where anime adaptations are done right. The 2010s saw Japan give us 3 great films based on the Rurouni Kenshin series that feature some of the most epic sword fights we've seen in some time. Reborn's fight scenes are like a combination of John Wick and Eastern Condor that I didn't know I wanted. But without a doubt, the number 6 spot has to go to the controversial director Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins. Miike is known for flooding the screen with disturbing and brutal imagery, but he uses it sparingly in 13 Assassins to build a cruel reputation for the film's antagonist. 13 Assassins moves at a slow pace as it builds up the team of heroes before hitting the audience with a near 1-hour climax as our heroes wage war against evil in an extreme burst of violence that fills every inch of the screen. Before we get to the second half of the list, let's take some time to show appreciation for the great work done on television over the last decade. Warrior debuted on Cinemax, bringing the 50-year-old writings of Bruce Lee to life. Netflix delivered on all fronts with Marvel's Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Punisher, and The Defenders. Netflix also gave some of the most beautiful kung fu I've ever seen in Marco Polo and presented an all-star cast in last year's Wu Assassins. YouTube TV came out of nowhere and surprised everyone with a sequel to the Karate Kid films and Cobra Kai. Incredible web series like Mortal Kombat Legacy and Street Fighter Assassin's Fist may be the best adaptations of their respective source materials we'll ever see. CW's Arrowverse gave us some surprises, but just as we did with many of these shows, we also had to say thank you and goodbye to Into the Badlands. Let's stay on this side of the Pacific and talk about China, who's provided some fantastic films before Kung Fu suddenly faded away from their films in 2016. Typically a supporting actor, Jing Yu finally was given a leading role in the excellent Wrath of Vajra. True Legend managed to take a light approach to the realm of wuxia and made an epic kung fu film that some feel is lacking in the second half, but hey, I like it. And if you want to dive headfirst into wuxia territory, you got films like Reign of Assassins and Yimou Zhang's Shadow. Andy On and Philip Ng absolutely killed it in Once Upon a Time in Shanghai, in a familiar story that harkens back to Bruce Lee's first leading role. Police Story 2013 felt like a beautiful and fitting end to Jackie Chan's longest running series, but for me, nothing comes close to 2011's Shaolin. Boasting a stellar ensemble cast with Andy Lau, Nicholas Che, Jing Yu, Wu Jing, Jackie Chan, Bing Bing Fan, and Xiao Kun Yu. Shaolin is a beautiful story of regrets, redemption, and finding acceptance in oneself through the flaws. The film story perfectly balances character work and drama with absolutely stunning kung fu from a cast of China's best actors and martial artists alike, proving that your film doesn't have to have just one or the other. Okay, I know this is weird, but let's stay in China because Donnie Yen gets a category all to himself. Yen has been a premier performer since the late 80s and remained one of the top martial artists in film in the 21st century. He refused to let up in the 2010s, immediately entering the decade with Ip Man 2 and Legend of the Fist. Dragon was an excellent homage to the one-armed swordsman and kung fu films of the 70s and 80s. Two more Ip Man films concluded his legendary run as the character, and Yen received nothing but praise for his action crime drama Chasing the Dragon. This is a seriously difficult decision, but I've got to give the number 4 spot to Special ID. Special ID is a unique blend of traditional martial arts and Donnie Yen's personal fascination with mixed martial arts, similar to Flashpoint, which many still regard as his best film to date. This undercover story was initially mistaken for a film adaptation of the video game Sleeping Dogs. From the opening fight with Ken Lo to the bombastic finale against the underrated Andy On, the action is some of the best you're going to get out of China. If the real Sleeping Dogs adaptation, in which Donnie Yen is supposed to star, never actually comes to fruition, well, at least we have Special ID. Okay, some may think that I'm wrong to put this next individual ahead of Donnie Yen, but I've got to give the next spot to Scott Adkins. When it comes to martial arts movies, no actor had a better decade. He perfectly concluded his own series with Undisputed 3 Redemption and Boyka Undisputed 4. Accident Man felt like what would happen if Guy Ritchie made a martial arts film. He took over his own dead franchise in Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning. His battle with Kung Lee and rematch with Marco Zaror in Savage Dog. Avengement converts Adkins' signature style into a bare-knuckle prison brawler, and maybe Adkins' best acting performance yet. Adkins joined the most stacked cast since Expendables in Triple Threat, starring alongside Tiger Chen, Tony Jaa, Iko Uwais, Michael Jai White, and Michael Bisping. But his most entertaining action-packed film of the decade has to be Ninja 2: Shadow of a Tear. Director Isaac Florentine previously worked with Adkins on 4 other projects, and knew exactly what he wanted for the sequel to the fairly tame ninja. Adkins was let off the leash, and he and Tim Mann, who arguably had just as good a decade as Adkins, choreographed an hour and a half of incredible fight scenes. Add to this a story captivating enough to draw in the audience with an astounding final fight right when you thought the movie was over. Our next spot goes to a group of people and a country that debuted into the action world in 2009, but exploded in 2011, or 2012 if you don't live in Indonesia. Over the last decade, Indonesia gave 4 incredible martial arts films, and 5 if you count Beyond Skyline. Timo Tjahjanto gave us a brutal kick-ass film in Headshot, and followed up by bringing his gory as hell horror background to Netflix in the completely insane The Night Comes For Us. But before any of those, Gareth Evans, Iko Uwais, and Yayan Ruhian gifted the world The Raid Redemption and The Raid 2. These movies undeniably brought something new to the world of action cinema. For starters, they introduced the world to Pencak Silat. The first film is a low-budget, non-stop adrenaline rush of martial arts mayhem, a chef's kiss of action showcasing the skills of its cast and director. Followed 2 years later by a brilliant Godfather-esque thriller that captures the intensity of the first, amps up the brutality, and throws in arguably the greatest car chase ever put to film, just in case the fight scene in the back seat wasn't enough for you. Before we get to the maybe obvious number 1 spot, here are some honorable mentions that I really couldn't find out just how to fit in here.
हाथ, पैर, मुंह, नाक, कान, कुछ भी फूट जाए, पता नहीं चलता। यहाँ तक कि हाई बीपी, लो बीपी। मुझे एक रेयर टाइप की बीमारी है, कंजेनिटल इनसेंसिटिविटी टू पेन। बाद में गूगल कर लेना। पर अगर अब सिंपल हिंदी में आपको समझाऊं, तो वो कहते हैं ना, मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता, वही बीमारी है।
Who are you? I've been asking the same question. Am I the son of a panda? The son of a goose? A student? A teacher? Turns out, I'm all of them.
Now I'm sure this will come to much dismay, but the final spot is going to the land of the giants. Hollywood has shown an inability to truly capture martial arts on film, but the 2010s, they figured it out. Well, two people figured it out. But there was some undeniably awesome action found in the Kingsman Secret Service, Captain America Winter Soldier, the undeniably gut-wrenching Warrior, Tom Cruise threw down in Jack Reacher and Mission Impossible Fallout. And somehow the Fast and Furious franchise low-key evolved into some of the most random martial arts movies around by bringing in people like Joe Taslim, Tony Jaa, Gina Carano, and Jason Statham. And who can forget that incredible single-take staircase scene in Atomic Blonde? But there is only one undeniable king of martial arts in Hollywood. I can't in good faith give the number one spot to just one of the John Wick films. Every single one of them brings in something that the previous film didn't. The first revitalized Keanu Reeves by capturing a unique blend of BJJ, judo, and gun fu. The sequel, John Wick 2, turns up the stakes and presents John Wick with two potential equals, giving us that amazing fight scene between John Wick and Common. And John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum used John Wick's flaws against him. He's a horrible striker. Wick's latest challenge came in the form of wushu, karate, and penchak salat in a glorious blend of martial arts and even horses and dogs. Since the first John Wick film, David Leitch, who co-directed the first John Wick, has been given the reins to franchise films such as Deadpool 2 and Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw. Those films, along with the growing budgets of each subsequent John Wick film, David Leitch and Chad Stahelski have been given the keys to Hollywood, and they're doing their best to improve it. That's my list. What do you think? What's your favorite martial arts movie of the last decade? Is Scott Adkins your number one, or is The Raid truly that perfect? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and have a good day.